Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first installment of What's Cooking in the NFL with Don Lewis. Now, my first topic of interest today is actually going to be about my hometown team, New Orleans Saints, of course. And I'm going to start off by going off with the game last week against the Oakland Raiders, which they played at home. It was a very good game towards the end, very good game all around. The Raiders did their thing. They took a risk, taking a 2-point conversion after scoring a touchdown late in the fourth quarter, and capitalized. I mean, you got to give them credit for that. They played a tough game. They're a very tough opponent, one to actually look out for this year. There's always positives and negatives you take out from a game every week in the NFL season. And I'm going to start off with the positives from that game. I mean, first one was Drew Brees. I mean, he did his thing. He threw for over 400 yards. Had a few touchdown passes to go along with that. Didn't only turn over the ball once, but after that one turnover, he was solid throughout the rest of the game. And a very surprising factor or positive from that one was the offensive line. Khalil Mack, who's probably one of the top pass rushers in the league, very young, very talented, can play many positions. You barely heard his name while watching. You barely saw him get pressure on Drew Brees the entire game. Teron Armstead, regardless of injury, played solid and just played his role the right way. And one of the big surprises on the defensive side was Craig Robinson, who was filling in for Donnell Ellerbe because he was injured with a quad. And Craig Robinson was your leading tackler. I mean, he played solid in the run game. He did everything he was asked to do, and it's surprising, especially from coming as a free agent signing from Cleveland. It's like you don't know what to expect from the guy, but he showed that he can be a great role player in any situation he's given it. Now, of course, you're always going to have the negative side of every game. And the main negative that I had against Oakland was the lack of pass rush from our defense. I just don't understand how you can not get pressure on the quarterback when they are down two of their offensive linemen. And it's just not it's just not good. It's not a solid thing that you want. It's a thing you want to have a positive for, but it was a big negative. Without them getting pressure, Derek Carr was able to stay in the pocket. Even if he did got a little bit, he was able to scramble out and get to his, third or fourth option. And, I give Paul Kruger some credit. He had just been with the team, signed the last week of the preseason. So he's still getting used to the defense. But Cam Jordan, he was nowhere to be found. The interior of the defensive line played solid. I mean, there was that one big rush by Jason Richard where he scored a touchdown. But other than that, I mean, the middle interior of the line played solid the entire game. Now, the second big negative was the secondary struggles, especially in the fourth quarter. The defense had held Oakland to only 13 points until the fourth quarter. And then Delvin Breaux goes out. You have a lot of inexperienced guys. I mean, P.J. Williams, King Crowley, Devontae Harris. Those last two are undrafted free agents with no experience but the preseason. And it showed. It showed how much the defense struggled in the secondary because Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree were just tearing them apart, especially after Delvin Breaux went out. And defense giving up 22 points in the fourth quarter is unacceptable. They got to play consistent, week in and week out, every game, every quarter, every second. Just plain and simple. And the biggest negative I had from that game was not running the ball enough and not running in specific situations. I mean, the Saints are not a team we've been a team of balance in the past, but recently it's just more about passing, and running when we need to. In this game, we had our times where we were throwing the ball 3 downs in a row. I just don't like that kind of play call. You need to at least run the ball on first down, especially when you have a lead. And if not run, then throw a little short pass. If you don't get it, then run on second down. Try and get rid of those third and long situations. That's where you put yourself in a bad spot. And also, I give our new kicker credit. He's a rookie. He's a young guy. I mean, he missed 2 field goals the entire game, but that 61-yarder came just as close from giving us a win. I give him credit for doing that kind of effort. I mean, that's really unheard of, especially from a rookie kicker giving you a chance. But then again, it shouldn't have been in that situation to begin with. It should have had the game locked up. But defense struggled, couldn't get a rush. Secondary was struggling as well, and Raiders took a risk, and it paid off, and that's why they started off 0-1. Now, going to week 2 against the Giants, who came off a 1 point win against the Cowboys, luckily because Terrence Williams decided to stay inbounds instead of out of bounds to try and give the Cowboys a chance to win that game at the end. So, going to this game, last year, the Saints and Giants accounted for 101 points combined in a shootout matchup where you had 2 touchdown leads from both sides that were given up late in the game, with the Saints winning on a Kai Forbath long field goal to win it at the end of regulation. So many were thinking, could this be a game like it was last year? It could be totally different. And to my surprise, it was a lot closer game and a lot lower scoring than I thought. The Giants, they made a lot of improvements on the defensive side of the ball, as well offensively during the draft. And it was just a matter of, is that defense really going to be cohesive, especially on the secondary side? Their pass rush is really solid. I mean, with Jason Pierre-Paul coming back from his firework accident, the signing of Damian Snacks Harrison, and Olivier Vernon mainly, you knew they were going to be good up front. It was just a secondary, maybe a little question marks here and there, but they played pretty solidly last week against Dallas, and it was just going to see if they're going to have a repeat performance this once against the Saints. And the questions going in for the Saints were, can the offense stay as productive as they were, and can the defense really pick up without having their main guy Delvin Breaux out of the lineup? So it was a slow start for both teams. I mean, first quarter, second quarter, really wasn't no score until the Giants were able to get a blocked field goal and brought it back to the house for 6. And that was a big turning point in the game because that was a big point swing. But the main thing that was a positive and was a strong improvement from last week was the Saints' defense. I was very surprised to see that they were actually getting pressure on the quarterback, getting sacks, and the main thing was forcing turnovers. They got three big turnovers in that game in 3 consecutive series. Especially a big one by Ken Crowley, who never gave up on the play and came from behind and knocked the ball away from Victor Cruz. And then another fumble they forced on Shane Vereen recovered. And probably the biggest one was Michael Monty came up the middle, got pressure, sacked Eli Manning, and forced a fumble, which was covered by Paul Kruger, and gave the Saints the ball inside Giants territory. Now, this goes to a big negative from the game was the offensive production. I mean, the passing game just wasn't there. The O-line was getting beat, which, like they weren't last week, which is a big negative always. I mean, it shows how much inconsistent play there is. There really was no run game again like it was last time. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I'm not calling the plays. If it was up to me, we'd be running the ball out more often. But like I said, I'm just a fan. I'm just realistic. That's how the Saints play their game. And the Saints didn't even have 300 total yards of offense. They were lucky to score a touchdown to at least get closer in the game. But, I mean, you got to look at the main factor. They didn't produce offensive like they did last week, and it showed. I mean, the defense gave you 3 turnovers in a row, and you still put up 0 points. That is not how you're going to win games. And you can't just count on field goals to win your game. So, probably the biggest X factor in that game was Thomas Morstead. Thomas Morstead, given all the bad offensive situations that they were put in, was able to just average about a little over 50 yards every punt and putting the Giants in very, inoperable field position, down inside the 20, multiple occasions. I mean, he kept the Saints in the game the entire way. And also, it didn't help on offense when you had guys drop passes. That's been a main Achilles heel to this offense for many years. And I understand Kobe Fleener's a new free agent signing. I know he's still trying to get acclimated to the offense. But if that ball hits your hands, you got to catch that. I don't matter if it hits your fingertips, your palms. If it hits your hands in any way, you got to catch that ball. I don't care who you are. Especially in the case of also Travaris Gannett. He had three drop passes last week, and he had another drop pass in the same route he's always running this week. It's like this guy he catches when it's relevant, but I just don't understand how you can keep playing the guy who drops passes on the easiest of routes. So I mean, all in all, it was a very good game. Also, you obviously gotta give credit to the victor in the Giants. I mean, they played a solid game all around. Their defense stepped up when they had to, and probably another negative in that game for the Saints was the kicking game. I mean, Will Lutz, he's a rookie. You know, he's still got to learn. But there were two occasions. I mean, the first kick he attempted, it got blocked. I mean, the line got beat up at the same time. You got to get your kicks up so it doesn't get blocked. And then another time, he had a line drive kick. I thought it was going to be no good the way it was going, but it still ended up through. So he just really got to work on getting that ball higher and just staying positive. You know, get the ball up, practice as much as you can, and keep working on distance and accuracy. That's all you can do. So, and also another main thing on the defensive side, they lost P.J. Williams early in that game to a concussion, and they're down to two undrafted rookies and a veteran corner who just signed on last week. The guy they just signed, another guy they just signed, he was inactive, but they played solidly. I mean, Eli almost threw for 375 yards and had pretty good completion percentage, but they gave up 0 touchdowns on the defensive side. No passing, no rushing, no touchdowns. The only touchdown was that block kick for a score. And I give credit for that. I mean, regardless of the stats, defense did not give up a touchdown. It's and several times when they were inside the 5 yard line. What more can you say about that? And I give credit to King Crowley. I mean, late in the fourth quarter, when the Giants were driving, he had perfect position on Victor Cruz, but the one thing he messed up on was instead of knocking the ball down, I mean, it's every defender's dream to try and go up and get an interception, but in that situation, just want to knock the ball down and just hope for the best on the next play. But instead, Victor Cruz catches it inside the 2, the Giants waste clock, kick a field goal, game over. Now, you may be thinking, well, Saints 0-2, we're going to end up the same 7-9 like last year, but don't lose the faith. I mean, this week we're playing Atlanta, who's coming off a victory against Oakland, surprisingly, after losing to Tampa Bay in week 1. I mean, the Falcons are a team that, revamped their offensive line and the receiving core and also made some big pickups on defense. So, and it's a Monday night game, it's a primetime game, and it's here in New Orleans, so this might be the win that the Saints need, especially against a division opponent. If they win this game and things play out for the other teams and they lose, I mean, Saints are right back in the division. But I feel like that's the only way the Saints are going to make the playoffs this year is if they win that division. So they got to start winning now, because then after that they got San Diego, and then after that you got the bye week, and then there's nothing but games for the rest of the season. So they need to get healthy, make the right calls, play the right people. And eventually, who knows? They might make the playoffs, they might not. We'll just have to wait and see. Now, as far as other news around the NFL, the Patriots continue to find a way to win. I mean, you got a guy in Jimmy Garoppolo who's been a backup for a few years now with Tom Brady on suspension, and they're playing without Rob Gronkowski, who has a hamstring injury, but they're still finding a way to win games. I mean, last week they beat the Cardinals, and then this week they beat the Dolphins. They were up 24-0 at one point, and then Garoppolo gets hurt. I mean, he has a sprained AC joint, which is never a good thing, especially if it's your throwing shoulder. So they bring in Jacoby Brissett, who was a rookie drafted this year. And I feel like it's like the Patriots, they just, no matter who they are, it's like they always find a way to win, no matter who they have out there. That's just the way they've been playing for years. Another interesting game was last night, Monday Night Football. You had Carson Wentz and the Eagles against Jay Cutler and the Bears. Not really a particular game that I wanted to watch. From what I heard, Carson Wentz, he didn't have the best of stats, but he played he played great in his role. I mean, just running the offense, doing what he needs to do, hitting players in the right spots. And then on the bad side of it, you got Jay Cutler, who took himself out of the game because of a thumb injury, and it's like it caused a lot of controversy. It's like, should he really taking himself out the game? I mean, that's the way Jay Cutler's been for years. It's like, we really don't know the truth. I mean, today they found out, he does have a sprained thumb injury, but we don't know how long it's going to keep him out. So, I mean, Jay Cutler hasn't been what he used to be, especially when he was playing in Denver. And it's like he doesn't have the weapons and the structure around him to play on a good team. I mean, they let go of Matt Forte in free agency, going to the Jets. They kept Alshon Jeffrey, but they really don't have any other playmakers in the backfield as well as out wide. I mean, they also traded Martellus Bennett to the Patriots. I don't know what more he can do for a guy who, he gives you the best chance to win, but if you can't protect him, then what good is the team going to be? As far as the Eagles go, I think they got lucky with the Rams taking Jared Goff, who hasn't even played a game yet. And Carson Wentz, in my opinion, was the most NFL ready quarterback, especially coming from a school like North Dakota State, who's been dominating in the FCS for the last few years now, winning back to back championships and just continue to have success. I mean, they just upset Iowa this week on the last second field goal. That just shows you how good they are. As far as other teams, I mean, Minnesota Vikings, they beat the Green Bay Packers this week, Sunday Night Football, and they lost Adrian Peterson in the process to a torn meniscus. Well, see how long that injury affects him, especially since he's on my fantasy team. That really hurts me bad. But surprising to see that Minnesota's defense is actually as good as they are, because they kept them in the game last week against Tennessee by forcing 2 defensive turnovers, which went for scores. And this week, it looks like they played a solid game with Sam Bradford starting his first game after being traded from the Eagles. And, excuse me. So, Vikings are a team to look out for, especially with no Teddy Bridgewater and looks like no AJ Peterson right now. But as long as that defense plays solid, they might have a chance. Packers, I mean, they had a close game against Jacksonville last week. Aaron Rodgers didn't even throw for 200 yards, but they still came out with a win. So, Packers, you don't know what to expect from them this year. You don't know how they're going to flip flop. The Detroit Lions lost to Tennessee on the last minute touchdown, but they beat the Colts last week. Colts dropped to the Broncos. Broncos surprisingly are 2-0. I mean, they had a near win against Carolina on Thursday night to open up the season with a missed field goal by Graham Gano in the waning seconds, and then they come out and beat the Colts by 3 points. A win is a win, and it's like the defense can carry that team. All they need to do is have Trevor Siemian, who was a late round draft pick last year, starting quarterback this year. For a Super Bowl champion, all he needs to do is complete some passes, hand off the ball, just do his job. As long as he does that, they're solid. Another team in that situation, Houston Texans. They have a great defense, especially with J.J. Watt, who's a returning Defensive Player of the Year. And you're going to get production from that defense every single game. I mean, they signed Brock Osweiler, who only played 7 games last year in limited role when Peyton Manning was out, but they paid him that money, and so far he's doing a very good job, especially with an upgraded receiving core. I mean, they drafted Will Fuller to go with DeAndre Hopkins, and also drafted, what's his name from Ohio State, Braxton Miller, and they signed Lamar Miller for the backfield. So they got a solid offense to go with that solid defense. So it looks like, in my opinion, they're the front runner to win the AFC South right now, depending on if they stay healthy and play consistent every week. The Baltimore Ravens, I don't know what to say about them. I still don't think Joe Flacco is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Should have been MVP of the Super Bowl when they won. But the Ravens have benefited from poor play from other teams. I mean, first week they played the Buffalo Bills, who fired their offensive coordinator after a loss to the Jets on Thursday night. And then they played the Browns, which surprisingly the Browns had a 20-point lead, and then the Ravens came back and scored 25 and answered to win the game. And that's just the way the Browns play. I mean, they haven't really been a successful team since they came back. They made probably one playoff appearances, but they can't find a solid start at quarterback. They started Cody Kessler, another rookie, starting this week against the Bengals. I mean, RG3 is hurt. Josh McCown is hurt. I don't know what more they can do. They got out. They drafted Corey Coleman. Josh Gordon's coming back at some point this season. And they had 14 draft picks, and all of them are on the roster this year. So they made a lot of revampments. It's just I don't see them winning right now. Probably if you give it maybe 3 or 4 years down the line, they might start turning things around. But until then, all they can do is try. Now, Pittsburgh, they had a solid out against the Redskins on Monday night. And Antonio Brown did his thing, especially with Big Ben healthy. D'Angelo Williams really stepped in without Le'Veon Bell out there because of suspension. And they played another great game against the Bengals. Bengals, I mean, they're a team that's always in contention every year. They got a great offense to go with a solid defense. And, I mean, they were playing Pittsburgh, which is pretty much like the same team as they are. Pittsburgh just played a better game and got the win. But, I mean, Cincinnati is 1-1 now after beating the Jets on the last second field goal. And like I said with the Jets, I mean, Darrell Revis, he hasn't been the best. He's been getting beat a lot lately, which is not his style. I don't know if it's just him not being physically ready to perform, or if he's just losing confidence, or if the age is starting to get to him. I don't know for sure, but the Jets pulled out a win last week against Buffalo. I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick threw for almost 400 yards in a very good outing. And I mean, they overcame two big passing touchdowns from Tyrod Taylor, who got sat out for a little bit because of a concussion protocol set, but came back in the game, but then eventually threw an interception. But in the end, it was close. I mean, Buffalo still had a chance to win at the end, but the Jets just held on, came out with the win. Excuse me. Kansas City Chiefs, they lost to the Texans this week, but they beat the Chargers by coming back last week in one of the biggest comebacks in franchise history. Chiefs are a very good team to look out for. Once Justin Houston comes back from injury, their defense is always going to be solid. I think they still have some kinks to work out offensively, especially with Jamal Charles not being in the backfield. But I feel like the Chiefs are probably going to have a repeat of last year. Maybe not have a winning streak, but they're still going to have that same type of play. The Chargers, you never know what to expect from them. I mean, they haven't been the best team since the early 2010s. I mean, they got a running back in Melvin Gordon. I mean, still got Phillip Rivers at quarterback. Tony Gates a tight end. It's just mainly questions on defense. It's like how can they keep up? How can they improve themselves from last year, especially with having one of the worst records, having a top pick. They drafted Joey Bosa, but he hasn't played yet because he really wasn't in camp during a preseason because of a contract dispute, and then he gets hurt with a hamstring injury. And it's like you never know how long that's going to take. So I mean, the Chargers they're pretty much up in the air right now, but I don't see them, you know, getting to the playoffs, especially this year, considering what they have probably in one of the strongest divisions in the AFC right now in the AFC West. The Patriots, like I already said, they're probably going to win the division regardless, whenever Brady comes back. Because, I mean, the Dolphins are 0-2. They lost a close one last week to Seattle, and then lost another close one to the Patriots this week. The Dolphins, they have the talent, they just can't get it together. I mean, they have signed a lot of guys, free agents, draft picks. They just need to find their niche. I mean, it hasn't been there for a while, and they got a franchise quarterback in Tannehill. I mean, they may have overpaid for him, but he can just get the job done. As long as he does that, that's all you can do. Defense just needs to do their part as well. I mean, they still have a lot to work on, but I mean, it's going to take time. They just need to find their niche. That's all it is. So say Atlanta. Talked about them already. Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay beat Atlanta week one. James Winston had a great game, 4 touchdowns. This week against Arizona, very different story. Throws 4 interceptions, and he played the whole game. Regardless, the score was 4-7, but he kept staying in the game. Just went out there regardless of the score, and I like that in the quarterback, especially a young one, especially in his second year. I mean, that proves that he doesn't want to give up. He wants to just keep trying, keep staying in that groove. And it's only one game. He might have a bounce back game this week. He may struggle, but you never know. It's a week by week, season. Can't let one game take away your whole season or a couple of games. And again, he was playing a great Arizona team who went to the NFC Championship last year. And they barely lost to the Patriots with a missed field goal at the end. I mean, but they have a very, very stout defense and a very potent offense, especially with the veterans Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald, and a big running back in David Johnson, and a very versatile Chris Johnson at running back as well. So I mean, the Cardinals definitely a favorite to win the NFC West, especially with the play of Seattle, who, like I said, they barely beat the Dolphins on a last minute touchdown last week, but then lose this week without scoring a touchdown against the Rams. I don't know what to say about Seattle. It seems like they're not doing things offensively, especially with Jimmy Graham hurt again. But Jimmy Graham definitely hasn't been the player he's been in the last 3 years. He hasn't been as productive because he was hurt last year mainly also. But I just don't see him as a big fit in that offense. Russell Wilson was hurt last week as well, so I don't know if that also affected his play. But Seattle's a big question mark because they definitely not the team they were a few years ago when they went to back-to-back Super Bowls, especially with having no running game with Marshawn Lynch not playing right now, even if he is retired or not. He's not on the team. He's not being a factor, so that also makes a big play for it. San Francisco, they played it. They tried to make a comeback against Carolina this week, but fell late in the game. But I mean, you know the whole controversy with Colin Kaepernick and the national anthem and all the things that's caused. But I mean, that's an issue. But it's not gonna something I'm gonna talk about because what more can I do? I mean, I'm gonna stand for the national anthem if I'm at a sporting event. I mean, he does have a right to speak his mind, but is it really gonna solve anything in the end? Probably so, probably not. The only thing we can do is hope. But Blaine Gabbert, honestly, in my opinion, gives him the best chance to win right now. I mean, he was drafted in the top 10 a few years ago. Didn't work out in Jacksonville. Now he's with them. I mean, he's a very mobile quarterback. I mean, he can still throw the ball. It's just they still need to work things out as a team. I mean, San Francisco, I mean, a few years ago, they were dominant. I mean, with Kaepernick at quarterback, the defense was stout. But then once Patrick Willis retired, Chris Ballmer retired, the defense starts to struggle a little bit. They're still pretty solid, but sometimes they can be inconsistent. The offense, very consistent as well. Surprisingly, I mean, they shut out the Rams, actually, but the Rams are no better than them. I mean, Todd Gurley couldn't get going. Case Keenum, I don't know what to say about him. It's just surprising when you draft for quarterback number one and he's not ready to play the first two games, which boggles my mind. In my opinion, I don't think that was the right pick for him in the first place. He should have gone with Wentz, but you can't repeat history. So, and in a sense, it's like how does the Rams come up and meet Seattle 9-3? I mean, it was a very poor game. Obviously, you can tell by the score, but I mean, the Rams are just one of those teams like they can beat a division opponent, but not keep beat anybody else. I don't know more you can say about that. The Redskins, they're down to 0-2 after losing to the Steelers Monday night last week, and then losing to the Cowboys this week. Kirk Cousins is a question of controversy with his teammates not backing him up as far as, being a leader, being more cohesive, being better, throwing the ball, finding his receivers. But then he don't say a thing. So he's in a contract year. He's only signed a 1 year for $20 million. He's pretty much playing for a job elsewhere if he wants to. But the way he's been playing lately, I mean, the interception he threw late in the game, he could have thrown the ball away. He still had another chance, but I mean, it was something to play that we saw with Brandon Harris against Wisconsin, throwing an interception to pretty much nobody but the defender. So Redskins are 1-2, the Cowboys 1-1, and with that, after that win, I mean, they had a chance to beat the Giants, but Terrence Williams made a big mistake by not going out of bounds with no timeouts left. But they pulled together this week. Dak Prescott, in my opinion, needs to play for the rest of the season, regardless if Tony Romo comes back, because I feel like with him, if you want to bring Romo back, that's fine. But I feel like you still should just play him for the rest of the year. That way, he has one entire season of NFL experience under his belt. He can still learn next year if Romo still plays. But I feel like, with him, you have a mobile passer, you have a mobile quarterback in general, and he opposes a dual threat that can help you when it comes to playing against division rivals like Philly, like Washington, like the Giants, especially with that defense. So I think I pretty much talked about every team there is in the NFL today. A lot of stories. It's only been 2 weeks, but it can only get better, and it definitely can't get worse. So that's my edition of What's Cooking in the NFL with Dom Lewis, and I'll see you next week.